All right, look up here, and I'm going to talk about what we're going to do. So, in Chapter 3, we are using a journal, okay? When we use our journal, we start on the left, and we work our way to the right. Left-hand side is our date column, and we only write the month once on our journal, and that's on the very first line because we always get a new journal for every month. And then we go through, and the second column under date is going to be where we put the actual date of the transaction. And you will find that you are going to have multiple transactions on a specific date. Please make sure you always just record them in the order that they are listed in the textbook, and then you'll be fine and it won't get taken off. Then you have your account title, and the account title column is used for any accounts that don't have a special column. So how many special columns do we have? 2. And they are? Cash and sales. So every other account, if we ever affect it, you have to write the account title on the column for account title. Now, when we went through and did 3-2, we had a transaction that took 2 lines, okay? And that was when we bought supplies on an account, because we bought supplies and it was on an account. And then there was no special column for supplies and no special column for our accounts payable. So when we have a transaction that takes 2 lines, you also need to make sure that you record the debit first and then the credit. We have our doc number. Our doc number is our source document referring to where we got the information from. So far we've used receipts, we've used checks, and then that's a typo on the third there. It says C1. It's actually supposed to be M1. Okay? M stands for memorandum. Also, you will hear referred to as a memo. And a memo is a short written note about whatever is happening. So you can never record a transaction without having proof. So here's my example. So for FBLA, I am sending in a check for us to go to Chicago. Okay? So we're traveling to Chicago the first weekend in November, and I have to get money for us to attend the conference, registration. So I have us registered online. I print out that form, and on that form it says how many people are going and how much is due. So I print that out, and then I have to turn that into the office. And the office looks at that registration form as the proof of why I need a check. I just can't go into the office and say, FBLA needs a check for $375. Because she'd be like, why? What are you going to do with it? And is it okay for her to question that? Shouldn't any business question and have to have a reason for money to be dispersed? So we always make sure that we have those types of forms that go along with it. So eventually what will happen is we'll go through and record. FBLA keeps track of their transactions as well. And we would have an out, we'll be crediting cash for $375 for conference registration. Okay? So we always want to make sure we keep track of that. Post-reference column, we are going to ignore, except we're going to have one transaction today that we're going to deal with. And you can tell that transaction is going to be on line 8, and I'll talk about that. We have 5 columns, 4 numbers. 2 are general, and then 3 are special. And we know a special column because they are have an account title on the top. Sound good? That's my crash course of what we did on Thursday and what we did on Friday. Today's transaction that we're going to put in the journal are going to be transactions that affect owner's equity. Okay, so remember we have 2 ways that owner's equity go up and 2 ways that makes owner's equity go down. Investment and sales make it go up. What are the 2 that make it go down? Expense and drawing. Okay, so we're going to go through and record some transactions that affect those owner's equity, because as of right now, we had money coming into the business for receipt number 1, and that was when the owner invested money into the business. But otherwise, all we've done is pretty much paid money out. You can't last in business very long if all you do is keep paying money out. We have to go through and record some fact that we're getting some in. And the owner is just not always going to put $1,000 in every couple days because the business needs money. We need to actually get something from customers, right? So we'll go through and take a look at how to record those transactions. Now, one of the things that I'm going to tell you is how we record these transactions are important. Do not go through and do this as a race. Okay? I do not ever recommend that you fill in all the dates and then you fill in all the source documents. And here's the reason why. I want you to do them transaction by transaction. So we'll do this transaction on this line. And then we'll move down to the next one. Because if you fill them in and you jump back and forth, it's really easy for you to make a mistake. If we get interrupted and there is a fire drill and you come back and you're like, I don't know where I left off. So always just make sure you do it transaction by transaction, not fill in the ones that you know. Stick with me and I promise I'll walk you through it. So our instructions for today is we are working with a chart of accounts and we're going to go through and record them for using page 1 of the journal. Source documents are abbreviated as follows: C, check, R, receipt, S, sales invoice, so this is a new one. And then we also have T for calculator tape. So we have 2 new source documents that we're going to be working with. On April 12th, we paid cash for rent $1,000, C4. The month of April is already on the top of our journal, so I'm going to put the date of the 12th. Melina, what are my 2 accounts on April 12th? Yes, perfect. Now, is there a special column for cash? Is there a special column for rent expense? So we're going to go ahead and under account title write in rent expense. Our source document is C4, and you have bells and whistles going off in your head because why? Check, cash, credit. Okay, so if cash is being credited, what has to happen to rent expense? Has to be debited for $1,000. I always like to start with what I know. And if your source document is a check, you have to be crediting cash. Bless you. The 13th, now I'm making up numbers. Receive cash from sales, $2,500, T13. So the date is the 13th. Okay, so we got something new here. We have this source document of T. What is T? Calculator tape. So what happened is the business person is going through, and they don't have a cash register, but they have a calculator, and they go through and they ring up all of their sales, and they have a calculator tape, and they put the date on there, and this is the proof of their sales that they've had. Now, businesses oftentimes will have a cash register, and there'll be a report that they can run at the end of days or at the end of weeks for them to go through and record what has happened for sales. Now, think about it. For Don's, when is Don's going to record their sales? Daily, weekly, monthly? Daily would make sense for them, right? Because they're a pretty big business and they're going to need to keep track of it. Now, if I give golf lessons and I give 7 golf lessons in a week, do I need to record my transactions daily? No. For me, that daily information is not going to be important, but for a month it would be. Bless you. So we are going to see, for this example, our service business, they're going to go through weekly or bi-monthly, they're going to go through and record their sales. And their source document is going to be a calculator tape. So when I look at this transaction, receive cash. So I know that I'm affecting cash, right? And then I also have sales. Holy wow. Those are 2 special columns, right? Cash and sales are our special columns. So I've always told you what goes in account title is the accounts that are affected that are not special. But here's the thing. They're both special. I can't leave it blank. If I leave it blank, what does it look like? That I forgot something, right? If I leave it blank, you're going to be like, oh, what did you forget? There's something there. Why didn't you fill something in there? So basically what we are going to do is we're going to reference this direction right up here that all of you have ignored, where it says, note, type of D to indicate a check mark in the account title and post-reference column. So typically, if we were writing, I would do a check mark. There is no key on the keyboard that is a check mark, but hey, a V looks like a check mark. So I don't leave it blank. I'm going to put the letter V here, which stands for a check mark, to say I don't need to put anything here. Now my source document is T13. Why is it 13? It's the date. Okay, so your calculator tape numbers are not going to be consecutively numbered. It will always be T and the date of the transaction. Now, this is the only time I'm going to mention this column for this chapter. If you put a check mark in the account title, you must also put a check mark here. I will teach you why in the next chapter. The only thing you need to know, check mark account title, check mark post reference. And that again would be a V. So, I'm affecting sales. Well, guess what? We know sales has to be credited, correct? So I'm going to go ahead and put in my $2,500. So if sales is being credited, that means cash has to be debited. The 14th, sold services on account to L Road, $510 S1. Oop, that's a new source document as well. Let's go ahead and start with the date of the 14th. Caleb, what do you think my accounts are? Accounts receivable, L row, yep, and what's my other one? It is. Okay, it does not directly say the word sales, but it says sold, and sold and sales is the same word, just different tenses. So, do we have a special column, Caleb, for sales? So what is going to go in my account title? Accounts receivable, L roads. Source document is S1. Now, my source document is S1. S stands for sales invoice. So let me give you a mind-blowing thought. If your source document is S for sales, what account must you affect? Sales. And if you're affecting sales, you're going to be affecting sales as a credit, right? So if your source document is an S, you know you're affecting sales, and it has to be credited because that's the only column we have. The amount of sales you have is going up. So in this example, basically, I just gave L Rowe a golf lesson, and she's going to pay me later. That's what they're saying there. So accounts receivable is going to be debited under the general column, and sales is going to be credited. On the 19th, I paid cash for the electric bill, $148. Lincoln, what's my two accounts? Nice. Thank you for telling me utilities expense and not electric bill. And how did he know it was utilities? He is pretty smart like that. But here's the other thing. Remember our directions right here? These are the only accounts we could use. They're listed. It has to be one of these words. You can't make up other ones. A business is always going to have a list of accounts that you can use, and these are the only ones that you can do. So we're going to go ahead, and is there a special column for utilities expense, Lincoln? No. So we're going to write that one under account title. Source document is C5 because you have bells and whistles going off saying, hey, cash has to be credited. So therefore, my general must be debited. The 20th, receive cash on account from L Road, $255 for R2. The date is the 20th. Michaela, what are my two accounts? Yes. Is there a special column for cash? Is there a special column for accounts receivable, L row? No. So what goes in my account title area? Yes. R2. So, Michaela, is cash going up or down? Do we have more cash or less cash? So what is the increase side of cash? Debit. Okay, so we're going to debit cash, $255, and we're going to credit accounts receivable L row. Now, this is an accounting concept right here, between the 14th and the 20th. On the 14th, we perform service for a customer. We have to affect sales on the date that we perform the service for our customer, even though our customer didn't pay us until the 20th. Then on the 20th, we go through and affect our accounts receivable and our cash account. So it's always important that you record the sale on the date that it happened, not on the date that you received payment. And on the 21st, paid cash to owner for personal use. Logan, what are my two accounts? Do we have a special column for drawing? Do we have a special column for cash? What goes in account title? Norm Derber drawing, yep. And our source document is going to be C6. So you're like, oh, Mrs. Gressel, if it's C6, I have to credit cash for $1,000. And therefore, general is going to be debited. I got a perfect already today. Another ego booster, right? Go ahead and try it on your own.